Hi everyone. So today we'll continue the next part of this chapter, that is Hardy-Weinberg Principle. This Hardy-Weinberg Principle states that the allelic frequency in a population are stable and remain constant generation after generation in sexually reproducing organism under certain conditions of stability. And that stability can be called as genetic equilibrium, or can be also called as, that is, genetic equilibrium, or it is also called as genetic equilibrium, or it is also called as Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Okay. So once again I will repeat the definition of Hardy-Weinberg principle. Hardy-Weinberg principle states that the allelic frequency in a population are stable and remain constant generation after generation in sexually reproducing organisms under certain conditions of stability. Okay, and that stability can be called as genetic equilibrium, or it is also called as Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Okay, is it clear? And this Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, the definition of this Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium can be asked for 2 marks question. So remember, this is important for 2 marks question, that is define Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Okay, or sometimes they may ask you to explain the Hardy-Weinberg principle giving the example, and I'll tell you regarding that in the next part. Okay, in the coming hours. Then, so here, that is Hardy-Weinberg principle. After this, we will see some technical terms. So, those technical terms, that is, what do you mean by gene pool? What do you mean by gene pool? We will see first. Okay, gene pool. These are all the basic concepts. What do you mean by gene pool? Gene pool is nothing but it is the sum total of all the alleles of the genes in a population. Okay, in a population, or you can say it is a sum total of all the alleles of a gene in a sexually reproducing organism is called as gene. Okay, then the next concept is about the gene frequency. What do you mean by gene frequency? So what do you mean by this gene frequency? They may ask you this also for 1 mark question. What do you mean by gene pool? Or they may ask you what do you mean by gene frequency, 1 mark question. What do you mean by gene frequency then? Gene frequency is nothing but the frequency of occurring, or you can say the frequency of occurrence of alleles of a gene in the gene pool in a given population is called as gene frequency. Gene frequency, once again I shall repeat, gene frequency is nothing but it is the frequency of occurrence of alleles of a gene in a gene pool of a population is called as gene frequency. Okay, then this gene frequency, if you try to explain it with the help of Hardy-Weinberg principle, so here I shall explain you that also. So this gene frequency, before explaining with respect to the Hardy-Weinberg principle, one more point, that is, if there is changes in the gene frequency, okay, if there is according to your Darwin, if there is a change in the gene frequency, that will lead to changes in the gene pool under the influence of natural selection. Okay, how does the gene frequency change? That is, when there is a change in the gene frequency in a gene pool under the influence of natural selection, that will lead to evolution. Okay, that is said by Darwin. Okay, now coming to explaining the gene frequency with respect to Hardy-Weinberg principle. Your Hardy-Weinberg principle tells you regarding the gene frequency by giving an equation, or an algebraic equation is enough to tell you regarding the gene frequency in a population. Here we will see it. So here According to Hardy-Weinberg principle, that is the sum total of all the allelic frequency in a population. All the allelic frequency in a population is always equal to 1. Okay. So that is sum total of all the allelic frequencies. There may be many genes in a population. Okay. And you know that genes will consist of alleles. That is, alleles are nothing but the alternative form of the gene. Okay. So the sum total of all the alleles in a population and frequency of it is always equal to 1. Okay. The next, that is, if you consider the individual frequency. Individual, if you take an individual organism, let us consider it as P and Q. Okay. Then, if you take a diploid organisms, if you take diploid organisms, here P, what does the P and Q represent there? Okay. So this P and Q is going to represent the frequency of allele A and allele small a, capital A and small a respectively. So always you know that diploid organism will consist of 2n number of chromosomes or 2 different types of alleles. So here, that is, in order to designate these alleles, that is capital A and small a, we are going to use 2 terms, that is P and Q. So what does the P represent then? That is here, and always remember, for a population, as I already told you, always, that is the frequency of allele A, that is P, and the frequency of allele small a, that is Q, it will be, that is P plus Q is always equal to 1. Then here, when I write P plus Q is equal to 1, what does the P indicate? As I already told you, P is going to indicate the allelic frequency of dominant allele capital A. Okay, in a diploid organism, as you already know, that is, there are 2 alleles, which are nothing but the 2 alternative form of a single gene. Okay, among these 2 alleles, one will be always dominant and the other will be always recessive. So here, keeping that in mind, we will see here, that is P is nothing but the allelic frequency of dominant allele A, capital A. Whereas Q is nothing but the allelic frequency of recessive allele small a. Okay, then here when I say P square, okay, that is P square is nothing but it is the allelic frequency of dominant that is genes AA, which is in the homozygous condition. When 2 alleles, same alleles are present together, that is called as homozygous condition. Okay, that can be represented as P square. Okay, then the allelic frequency of, that is the recessive allele AA, can be represented as Q square. And then the allelic frequency of capital A and small a can be represented as 2PQ. Okay, so once again I will tell you, that is, as you all know, for a population, P plus Q is equal to 1. P is nothing but the allelic frequency of dominant allele A. Q is nothing but the allelic frequency of recessive allele small a. Okay, that is always equal to 1. Then if I want to write, that is P square. What does the P square indicate? P square is nothing but P square that is nothing but, that is P square is nothing but, you can say, allelic frequency of AA, that is 2 dominant alleles which are in the homozygous condition, can be represented as, that is P square. Whereas allelic frequency of small a, that is the recessive alleles, it is in the homozygous condition can be written as Q square. Then allelic frequency of capital A, small a, that is nothing but heterozygous condition. Heterozygous means 2 different alleles are there. One is dominant, another is recessive. That can be represented as 2P. So this together, you are going to get equation, that is P square plus 2PQ plus Q square will give rise to P plus Q whole square. Okay, that this is how we'll get the equation, and this P plus Q whole square is nothing but the P square plus 2PQ plus cube square. Okay, right? Then next part we are going to see is regarding the factors affecting Hardy-Weinberg Principle. Okay, so there are certain factors which are affecting a Hardy-Weinberg Principle. We will see the factors affecting Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium or Hardy-Weinberg principle, or you can also say equilibrium. The first factor is regarding the gene flow or gene migration. Then second factor is genetic drift. Then third one is mutation. Then the fourth one is genetic recombination. And the fifth one is E, that is natural selection. So these are all the factors which are affecting your Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. And this can also be asked for 2 marks question, that is, or along with the what do you mean by define Hardy-Weinberg principle and write down the or mention the factors affecting Hardy-Weinberg principle can be together asked for 3 marks question. Okay, so keep this in mind. Right. So first one we will see regarding that is factor affecting Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium or principle, that is gene flow or gene migration. Okay, gene flow or gene migration is nothing but that is it is involving the flow of gene from one population to another population. Okay, right? That is going to, that is, for example, suppose if I take one population, say A, and this is population is B. Suppose the gene is going to move from, that is going to migrate from one population to another population, that is nothing but the gene flow. And whenever there is gene flow from one population, there is loss of gene from one population, this is loss, and then in the next population there is a gain of gene. Okay, or you can say the frequency of genes in the gene pool is going to decrease here, and the frequency of the gene in the next gene pool is going to increase. That is nothing but the gene flow or gene migration. What happens here? The genes will migrate from one population to another population. Okay, as the genes are migrating from one population to another population, one population, say A, will lose the gene, whereas the next population will gain the gene. Like this. And such factors are also going to affect the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Okay, right? Then next one is genetic drift. What do you mean by genetic drift? Then it is nothing but accidental random change in the gene frequency or the allele frequency of a given population is nothing but genetic drift. This can also be asked for 1 mark question. Define genetic drift. Genetic drift is nothing but it is an accidental random change in the gene frequency of a population is nothing but the genetic drift. Sometimes the genetic drift is so severe that it may lead to formation of new species. That time, for example, here this is one population and the mutation or random changes will occur in this population, and as a result speciation occurs. That time the previous population will become the founder of the speciation, and that effect is called as founder effect. This also can be asked for 1 mark question. What do you mean by founder effect? Okay, founder effect means that is the original drifted population becomes the founder. Original drifted population will become the founder, and the effect is called as founder effect. That means there is a population and there has sudden mutation or random change has taken place, and the change is so severe that that change has led to the formation of new species. So that time the founder population, So the drifted population is going to act like a founder, and the effect is called as founder, and that is also going to affect your Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. The next one is mutation. Okay, mutation means what? Mutation is nothing but change in the genes. Okay, and when the mutations are favorable, okay, and when the mutations go on accumulating for few generations, that may lead to evolution or the formation of new species. Okay, this is about the mutation. The next one is genetic recombination. What do you mean by genetic recombination? Okay, this you might have heard during mitosis or meiosis, especially in case of sexually reproducing organism. When two gametes come together, what happens? That is, there is exchange. That is, for example, these are the two non-sister chromatids. Okay, chromatids, and if there is exchange of gene in between these two, okay, by the help of crossing over, when there is two non-homologous chromosomes, when they come together, and when there is crossing over taking place, during crossing over there is exchange of segments of fragments, segments of the chromatids, or you can say there is an exchange of genes which is taking place, and that exchange or that crossing over leading to the exchange of genes will lead to genetic recombination, and that time also that is going to affect your Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Genetic recombination which will bring about variations because there is exchange of genes. Okay, right. The next one is natural selection. You already have the idea regarding natural selection in the previous classes of this chapter. Natural selection is nothing but your nature will select the well-adapted organism, and only such well-adapted organism will survive best because they have got useful variations in their body, and when they survive they can grow, they can reproduce, and they can produce large number of offsprings, and they can live happily because they are selected by nature, and that is nothing but the natural selection. If they fail to get selected by nature, that time also the equilibrium will be changed. So natural selection is nothing but selection by nature, and nature selects only organism which is better adapted and which has got useful variations. Okay, so these are all the factors which are affecting natural selection, and this natural selection are of three kinds. That is, one is natural selection are of three types. That is directional, here that is, first one is directional selection. Okay, then second one is stabilizing selection, and the third one is disruptive selection. So what do you mean by, first one we will see stabilizing, then we will go for directional and disruptive. Okay, what do you mean by stabilizing? So if I draw a graph, so this graph will, here this is the graph which is going to represent the mean value. So here in stabilizing selection, the more number of individuals will acquire mean value during the natural selection. Okay, when you say directional selection, in directional selection, the graph I am drawing here, the number of phenotypes. Okay, then in direction, suppose this is the mean value. In directional selection, here you can see the individuals. This is the mean value. So here the individuals, in case of directional selection, the individuals are not going to acquire the mean value, but instead they will acquire away from the mean value, that is either on both the sides, either this side or this side of the selection due to natural selection. Then what do you mean by disruptive? Here the disruptive shows, here this is the mean value, and here the organisms in the disruptive selection will show in between or on either side of the mean value. That is, on either side of the mean value, the individuals will acquire that position. This is regarding the stabilizing. This is stabilizing where the organism will acquire the mean value character, whereas that is here medium-sized individuals are benefited. You can see medium-sized individuals. If I take the size of the organism, medium-sized individuals are benefited here. Whereas in direction, the organisms do not acquire the medium character, but they are going to occupy either sides. Whereas in disruptive, here they are in between. Okay, we'll have two halves here, two sides, two ends you can see. Okay, this is all about the different types of selection. Okay. Then, next part of this chapter is nothing but just like a storyline. Okay, that is, how is the evolution of life? Evolution, a brief account. We are going to see. In this, study in which era or which year, how many years back, what appeared, and all so and so. The evolution, a brief account. Okay, so here, according to this, so next part is evolution, a brief account, what you are saying. So this is just like a story. Okay, this will tell you in how many years back, what appeared, what happened to them, then how the man evolved, what happened to the dinosaurs, all those things. Okay, we'll see that. Okay, so here about 2000 million years ago, that is 2000 million years ago, what happened is, that is, first cellular form of life appeared on Earth. Okay, the next, that is some cellular form. Among this first cellular form of life appeared 2000 million years ago. Among these, few of them had got ability to release oxygen. Then next is slowly single-celled organisms, where earlier there were single-celled organisms. Later on, these single-celled organisms gave rise to that is multicellular organisms. Then by the time that is 500 million years ago, invertebrates were formed and those became active invertebrates. That is 500 million years ago, there was formation of invertebrates. Here 200 million years ago, living organisms existed on Earth. Okay, then next is Jawless fish appeared. That is, Jawless fish appeared about 350 million years ago. Jawless fish. Right. Then again, you can see that is some of the seaweeds and plants also started appearing about 320 million years ago. That is, some of the seaweeds and plants started appearing. Then next was regarding the coelacanth. It is nothing but the lobed fish was found in South Africa. Africa was found in 1938. It is evolved into first amphibians. It evolved into first amphibians that lived both on land as well as water. Then some of them consider that these coelacanths are nothing but these are the ancestors of our present day amphibians and reptiles. Okay. Then next one is regarding the amphibians appeared, and these amphibians evolved into reptiles. Amphibians appeared and these amphibians evolved into reptiles. Then next part of this chapter is regarding the next event is and so later on your reptiles, that is laid eggs with hard shell, which was resistant to survive under hot sun. Then later on the giant ferns appeared, And these giant ferns, that is the pteridophytes, they fell on the ground and gradually they led to the development of coal deposits slowly. Then later on, some of the reptiles, okay, they went back to the water and tried to evolve themselves into fish-like reptiles, that is ichthyophis. For example, ichthyophis. Then later on, some of the land reptiles you are very much familiar with, that is the dinosaurs appeared on the earth, and the largest among these dinosaurs are nothing but your Tyrannosaurus rex. They may ask you for one mark question, that is which is the largest dinosaurs which appeared on the earth during that time. That is nothing but the Tyrannosaurus rex. Okay, then about 65 million years ago, slowly what happened, that is these dinosaurs started disappearing from the earth, right? And some of them say that some of the dinosaurs have now evolved into birds, right? And then these, as there was disappearance of these dinosaurs, it paved the way, or it gave the chance for the survival of appearance of other animals. Okay, that time some of the mammals started appearing on the earth, right? And so that is one of the smallest mammal is nothing but the shrew. Okay, that is a shrew is the smallest mammal which appeared on the earth that time. Okay, which we can say by seeing its small, that is a fossil. That is shrew is a small mammal, right? Then these mammals started existing on the earth, and then these mammals were viviparous. Okay, they that is they nourished their young ones in the womb itself, and then they delivered once they were fully, that is able to match once they were mature, right? Then the mammals were more intelligent and were sensing the environment, surrounding environment also. Okay, then there were mammals which were found in South America, which were resembling your horse. Okay, then hippopotamus, bear, rabbit, etc. Okay, and then due to continental drift, okay, what happened is that is when South Africa joined with South America joined with North America. What happened is these animals were overridden by North America. Okay, North American fauna, that is horse, hippopotamus, whatever was seen in South America, due to continental drift, these both were joined, and whatever the fauna was present in the North America, it all perished. That is that is the fauna of North America did not allow the fauna of South America to perish. Okay, so then due to some that is some of the pouched mammals like a kangaroo, Australian, that is pouched mammals like pouched mammals of Australia like a kangaroo also survived because of the lack of competitions of the predators, right? And then some mammals also lived jolly in water like whales, dolphins, then your seals, sea cows, etc. Then there was evolution of horse, then evolution of man, evolution of dog which took place, and these are all the special stories of evolution, right? And then among all this, that is evolution of horse, evolution of dog, evolution of man. Evolution of man is very much interesting. That is a story which we will see in the next class. Thank you.